For centuries, across generations of power, some families never lost control. While others rise and fall, they remain eternal and absolute. Their wealth is a hidden architecture. It is not stored in ordinary ways. It is protected by silent systems, layered and hidden. Rules decide everything, written in blood: who gets access to the final legacy and who gets nothing at all. Ownership disappears into the deep. Control remains absolute and dark, invisible to the naked eye of the public, untouchable by any earthly law. This is not money as you understand it. This is a system of total global dominance, designed to operate from the shadows, to last forever, beyond the reach of time. They don't guess, they calculate reality. They track every single movement on Earth. Everything is under their observation. Before power is ever truly granted, comes discipline and absolute sacrifice. Behind the scenes where the truth lies, the machine runs without stopping for air. The world reacts to the surface noise. They don't move a single muscle. Their wealth spans every continent, is everywhere, in every moving part. This isn't money, it's a roadmap. It's a timeline of total human control. Law is the final and only battlefield, is their shield and their silent sword. Chaos hits everyone like a sudden storm, except them, safe in their high fortress. Everything is under their direct command, is controlled from the deep shadows. They move with total and utter freedom, without limits or any recognized borders. Decisions are made in the dark of night, in silence beyond the reach of ordinary men. Power is always close to the silent heart, is always close to the center of command. What you see is a carefully crafted fabrication. Isn't everything you believe it to be? The threads are pulled in secret, a reality designed for your compliance. The future is a precisely calculated plan, is planned early in the quiet halls. This isn't wealth, it's a relentless grip. It's control over the very fabric of reality. And it never ends, it only deepens. Welcome to the new architecture. For centuries, while empires rose and fell, some families never disappeared. Their wealth did not collapse with wars, nor vanish with economic crises. It adapted, evolved, and silently expanded. This is not ordinary wealth. This is engineered power, designed to outlive generations. Hidden behind walls like these lies a system the world rarely sees. Most people chase money, but the ultra-wealthy design systems. While markets fluctuate, their structures remain untouched. They do not depend on luck or short-term success. Instead, they build frameworks that control wealth across time itself, a system where ownership becomes invisible and control becomes permanent. Wealth at this level is no longer stored in bank accounts. It is protected, layered, and hidden behind legal architecture. Access is controlled, movement is restricted, and visibility is almost non-existent. This is where fortune transforms into something far more powerful than money. It becomes a controlled ecosystem. The real secret is not where the money is kept. It's how ownership is structured. Through complex legal entities, assets are separated from individuals, trusts, foundations, and jurisdictions. Create layers of protection. Even if one part collapses, the system survives because the wealth was never directly owned to begin with. But legal structures alone are not enough because the greatest threat to wealth is not the outside world. It is the next generation. That's why these families created something rare. A system of internal control, a constitution, not for a country, but for their bloodline, a rule book, designed to prevent their own heirs from destroying everything. In most families, wealth is discussed casually. But here, it is governed like a nation. Every decision is structured. Every action is calculated. Nothing is left to emotion or impulse. Because in this world, a single mistake can erase generations of power. Before heirs are given access, they are trained. Not just in education, but in discipline, control, and responsibility. Because wealth without understanding is a liability. And in these families, ignorance is never tolerated. Only those who prove themselves are allowed near the system. Behind every dynasty, there is a hidden engine, a private financial command center known as the family office. It operates silently, away from public markets, managing billions across continents with precision. This is where wealth is not just protected, but constantly multiplied. The world economy is unpredictable. Markets rise and collapse without warning. But these families are not exposed to that chaos because their wealth is not fully tied to the system. It is diversified, layered, and shielded. While others react, they remain untouched. Their wealth is not stored in one place. It is spread across industries, countries, and systems. Real estate, infrastructure, logistics, technology. Each layer strengthens the next, creating a network so vast that even global crises fail to break it. For them, wealth is not a moment. It is a timeline. Every generation is recorded, tracked, and guided. Mistakes from the past are studied and never repeated. Because survival depends on continuity, and continuity depends on discipline across time. Legal strategy is their strongest weapon, not just to defend wealth, but to control its movement. Every asset is placed where it cannot be easily touched, protected from taxation, litigation, and external interference. A structure so complex that breaking it becomes nearly impossible. When crises hit, panic spreads instantly. Billions are lost within minutes. Entire fortunes disappear overnight, but inside these private systems, nothing moves. No panic, no reaction, because the system was designed for moments like this, not to survive chaos but to remain above it. Control extends beyond money. It reaches into lifestyle, environment, and even personal choices. Everything is designed to minimize risk, because protecting wealth requires controlling the world around it. And in this environment, nothing is left unguarded. This is the truth most never see. Wealth at this level is no longer simple. It becomes a network of invisible ownership, a system where control is hidden and access is restricted, where money moves but identities remain unseen. This is not just protection, this is strategic invisibility. And once built, it becomes almost impossible to break. Not every heir is trusted. Inside these dynasties, access is never automatic. It is evaluated, tested, and often denied, because one wrong individual can dismantle everything. And in this system, trust must be earned, not inherited. There are rules hidden within the system, restrictions that define who can access wealth and who cannot, conditions tied to behavior, education, and loyalty. Because inheritance is not a gift, it is a controlled privilege. Granted only under strict conditions, from the outside, wealth looks like freedom. But inside these systems, it often comes with isolation, expectations, pressure, and constant scrutiny. Because being born into power means living under control, where every decision is measured and every move has consequences. Not all bloodlines remain inside the system. Some are removed quietly, permanently. Because failure is not tolerated here. Those who cannot adapt are cut off, not by force, but by design, a silent elimination that protects the whole. Before control is granted, performance is tested, not once, but repeatedly. Every decision, every strategy is challenged. Because leadership within these systems, it requires more than knowledge. It requires resilience, precision, and absolute control. Their power is not local, it is global, spanning continents, markets, and industries, each location carefully selected, each investment strategically placed. Because true protection requires distance, and distance creates security. Before control is granted, performance is tested, not once, but repeatedly. Every decision, every strategy is challenged. Because leadership within these systems requires more than knowledge. It requires resilience, precision, and absolute control. In the modern world, control extends into data. Information, movements, and transactions are monitored constantly. Everything is encrypted, secured, and hidden from public view. Because information is as valuable as money, and losing it means losing control. Mobility is another layer of power, the ability to move quickly, silently, and without restriction. Because in times of uncertainty, location matters, and those who can relocate instantly maintain control, no matter what happens. This is where the system becomes truly different. They do not plan for years or even decades. They plan for generations, far beyond their own lifetime. Every move today is designed to shape the future, a future they may never see, but fully control. Because in this world, power is not measured by what you have now, but by what you can preserve long after you are gone. Time is their greatest advantage. While others think in months, they think in lifetimes, compounding, layering, expanding. Every decision is aligned with long-term survival because wealth that is rushed is wealth that disappears. Not all wealth looks like money. Some of it is hidden in assets that quietly appreciate: art, collectibles, rare holdings. These are not just possessions. They are strategic stores of value, invisible to many, but powerful in preservation. True power comes from controlling essentials: land, energy, resources, things the world cannot function without. Because when you control necessity, you control stability. And stability protects wealth from collapse. Despite the scale of power, everything remains quiet. No public display, no unnecessary exposure. Because visibility creates vulnerability. A future they may never see, but fully control. Because in this world, power is not measured by what you have now, but by what you can preserve long after you are gone. Time is their greatest advantage. While others think in months, they think in lifetimes, compounding, layering, expanding. Every decision is aligned with long-term survival, because wealth that is rushed is wealth that disappears. Not all wealth looks like money. Some of it is hidden in assets that quietly appreciate. Art, collectibles, rare holdings. These are not just possessions. They are strategic stores of value, invisible to many, but powerful in preservation. True power comes from controlling essentials: land, energy, resources, things the world cannot function without. Because when you control necessity, you control stability. And stability protects wealth from collapse. A system built in silence, protected in secrecy, and passed through generations. But this is only the beginning, because what lies beneath is even more complex and far more powerful. behind the visible world of finance, there exists another layer, one that is rarely discussed. One that is rarely discussed and almost never understood. It operates quietly. It operates quietly within legal frameworks. A system designed not just to grow wealth, but to control its movement across generations. Location plays a critical role. Certain jurisdictions offer unique advantages. Legal environments and where privacy is protected and control is reinforced. They are selected for their ability to shield wealth from external reach. The foundation of this system is the trust, a legal entity that separates ownership from control. Assets are no longer held by individuals, making them harder to access and even harder to destroy. Beyond trust lie foundations, entities designed to preserve purpose alongside wealth. They define how assets are used, how decisions are made, ensuring that the system continues even when individuals are no longer present. The true strength lies in distribution. They are spread across regions, systems, and industries, creating a network that is both flexible and resilient. Information is continuously analyzed. Patterns, trends, and risks are identified before they appear, because control requires foresight. And foresight is built on data. While the world reacts, these systems anticipate. They are not affected by short-term instability, because their foundation is not built on temporary conditions. It is anchored in long-term strategy, making them remarkably resistant to change. Communication inside these systems is never exposed. Every message, every signal is encrypted, layered, and controlled, because information is not just power. It is protection, and losing control of it means exposing everything. Control does not stop at financial systems. It extends into movement, goods, resources, and supply chains. Because influencing flow, it means influencing economies, and controlling economies, that means shaping outcomes on a global scale. Decisions are never impulsive. They are calculated, precise, and aligned with long-term control. Because in this world, every move has consequences far beyond the present, and a single decision can shape decades of outcomes. When instability spreads, most systems react. But these structures do not respond emotionally. They operate with precision because they were designed to absorb shock, not just to survive volatility, but to remain completely unaffected by it. Legal systems are not static. They evolve constantly, adjusted to match new environments and new challenges, because control requires adaptability, and adaptability ensures survival across generations. What seems disconnected is often part of a larger network. Entities operating independently, yet moving in coordination. A structure that exists across borders without clear visibility. Because true influence does not need to be obvious, it only needs to be effective. The deeper you look, the more complex it becomes. Layers within layers, each designed to obscure and protect. Because clarity creates vulnerability and complexity creates security, making the system almost impossible to fully trace. At this level, wealth becomes influence, and influence becomes control, not through visibility, but through positioning, quiet, calculated, and deeply embedded, because the true power is not what is seen, but what operates behind everything. Power, at this level, does not need to be loud. It moves quietly through conversations, decisions, and agreements that never reach the public eye. Because the most powerful moves are the ones no one ever sees. Influence extends beyond markets. It reaches into systems, institutions, and decision-making environments, not through control, but through proximity, positioning, relationships, and long-term alignment, because being close to power is often more valuable than owning it. Perception is another layer of control. What people see, what they believe, and how they react can be influenced. Not directly but subtly, because shaping perception means shaping reality itself. And reality is where power truly exists. Long before events unfold, they are studied, analyzed, predicted, and prepared for. Because influence is not reactive, it is proactive, built on understanding patterns and positioning ahead of time, allowing these systems to move first before others even realize. Money flows through systems that appear independent, banks, institutions, and markets. But beneath the surface, connections exist, subtle, complex, and rarely visible. Because true control does not centralize power, it distributes it strategically. When the world destabilizes, opportunities emerge. While others struggle, these systems adjust, repositioning assets, shifting strategies, and strengthening control. Because instability is not just a threat, it is also an advantage for those prepared. Not all influence is direct. Some of it appears as contribution. Through foundations and initiatives, impact is created. But behind that impact lies strategy, because influence can be built quietly through what appears to be generosity. Relationships and lights are carefully maintained. Networks are continuously expanded because access is everything. Knowing the right people at the right time in the right place creates opportunities that cannot be replicated, and those opportunities define long-term control. At the highest level, everything connects. Finance, influence, information, and movement. A system so integrated that separating its parts becomes nearly impossible. This is not random success. It is engineered dominance, a structure designed to operate beyond visibility and beyond disruption. At this level, decisions are made in silence. No announcements, no headlines, just calculated movements executed with precision. Because true control does not need recognition. It only needs results, and those results shape the direction of entire systems. Nothing operates in isolation. Every sector, every market, every system is connected. A shift in one area echoes across the entire network, because the structure is designed to integrate everything, creating stability through connection. The deeper truth is long-term vision, plans that extend far beyond immediate gain, decades, even centuries, mapped out in advance. Because controlling the future requires understanding it. Long before it arrives, it has already been mapped. Information flows constantly, signals, patterns, indicators, all monitored in real time, because awareness creates advantage. And advantage allows these systems to move ahead of events before they unfold across the global network. As pressure increases, systems are tested. Instability spreads across markets and institutions. But these structures remain unaffected because they were designed not just for stability but for dominance within uncertainty. Execution is synchronized across regions, teams, and systems. Every movement aligned with strategy because precision ensures efficiency. And efficiency maintains control, even at scale. Power is not just financial, it exists in infrastructure, energy, and essential systems. Because controlling necessity means controlling stability. And stability is the foundation of long-term dominance. From a distance, the world appears unified. But beneath the surface, systems operate independently, invisible networks, shaping outcomes without recognition. A hidden architecture that defines movement across the globe. When the movement ends, silence returns. No evidence, no trace, no visibility. Because the system was never meant to be seen, only to function perfectly in the background. This is the hidden architecture of control, built over generations, refined through time, and protected by design. But even this system has its limits. Because the greatest challenge is not external, it comes from within, hidden in the shadows. For decades, everything remained controlled. Every move calculated, every risk contained. The architecture of power demands total precision, but no system is perfect. And when pressure builds, even the strongest structures begin to fracture. It begins with something small, a signal out of pattern, a movement, unexpected. Because even the most secure systems cannot predict everything. And when the unexpected appears, control starts to slip. The greatest threat is not external. It comes from within, hidden and deep. Conflicting visions, clashing priorities, and personal ambition. Because even in systems built on discipline, human nature remains unpredictable. This has happened before. Moments when control was tested. Mistakes that nearly broke the system. Hidden from history, but never forgotten internally, because every dynasty carries its own silent failures. External pressure begins to align with internal cracks. Markets shift, systems tighten, and uncertainty grows. Because when internal weakness meets external chaos, The risk multiplies as the network attempts to stabilize. The surge is overwhelming. Now, the system is under pressure. The weight of global expectations begins to shift. Decisions must be made quickly. There is no room for hesitation in the command center. Adjustments executed instantly. The network responds to the pulse of survival. Because delay means loss of control. And in this world, control is everything. And then it happens. A single player moves against the grain of the collective. A decision outside the system, a ripple that could become a tidal wave. An action without control because one individual can disrupt everything. And when discipline breaks, the entire structure is at risk. The system is no longer perfectly stable. Cracks are forming, control is weakening, and what was once invisible is now at risk of exposure. Because when a system this powerful begins to fail, the consequences are unimaginable. The disruption is no longer contained. It spreads across systems faster than expected. Because once instability begins, it rarely stays isolated. And now, the structure is being tested in real time. Outside, the world begins to react. Markets shift aggressively. Confidence weakens and uncertainty spreads. Because even the smallest disruption at this level can trigger massive consequences. And those consequences are now unfolding. Inside, unity begins to fracture. Decisions are no longer aligned. Strategies begin to conflict because pressure reveals differences. And differences create instability within the system itself. This is not a minor failure, it is structural. Connections are weakening, control points are failing. Because the system relies on perfect coordination. And now, that coordination is breaking apart. In moments like this, leadership becomes critical. Decisions must be made without hesitation. Because uncertainty creates hesitation, and hesitation accelerates collapse. Only those who act decisively can attempt to restore control. The impact begins to spread outward. Everything is connected, from internal system to global operations. Delays, disruptions, and inefficiencies appear. Because when the core weakens, everything connected feels the effect. Now, the system enters survival mode. The core must be protected. Emergency protocols activate instantly. Resources are redirected, priorities shift. Because preserving the system becomes the only objective. Everything else is secondary. For the first time, the system is vulnerable. The silence of the machine is the loudest warning. Control is slipping, and what was once invisible is now exposed to risk. Because when a structure this powerful begins to collapse, it does not fall quietly, it shakes everything connected to it. This is the breaking point. No more planning, no more delay, only decisions, because when systems fail, control must be reclaimed instantly. And in this moment, every choice will determine survival or collapse. This is the moment where the future is decided. The response is immediate. Resources shift, strategies adapt, hands rapidly adjusting controls and issuing commands. The human response to the digital crisis. Camera tracking chaotic coordination efforts. The center begins to hold against the surge. Close-up of critical operations being launched. Protocol Alpha is now the only path. But unity is no longer guaranteed. The internal friction becomes a fracture. Leadership splits, different visions competing for control, a house divided. Because under extreme pressure, even the strongest alliances can fracture. And when leadership divides, the system weakens further. The distance is the breach. The truth becomes clear. This is not a single failure. It is cascading, spreading deeper, faster, and wider. One node falls, then the next. Because once a system this complex begins to break, stopping it becomes exponentially harder. The breakdown is accelerating beyond calculation. The darkness spreads. In chaos, leadership must emerge, a figure of authority in the storm. One direction, one command, one strategy, the face of resolve. Because hesitation will destroy everything. The network pulses with action, and only decisive action can attempt to stabilize what remains. Focus becomes the anchor. The system enters full defense mode, lockdowns, containment, and isolation. Every layer activated simultaneously. The system builds its final wall. Because survival now depends on limiting damage and protecting the core. The fight for the foundation has begun. Pressure mounts in the core. The priority shifts. Not everything can be saved, only the core, the foundation, the essential structure. Technicians isolating key components. Only the essential survives. But preserving enough can allow recovery. Stability is reclaimed. The core remains protected amidst the chaos, a silent fortress of data. Sacrifices must be made. Sections of the system are abandoned. Disconnected to protect what remains, the perimeter falls, because survival requires loss, and loss is now unavoidable. The perimeter falls so the heart can beat, a necessary darkness. And then it slows. The collapse halts, not fully stopped, but contained. Because the system was never fragile. It bends, but does not break. And now, control begins to return. Relief in the center. Stability is reclaimed from the brink of disaster. The storm passes. The system survives, changed, tested, but intact. Because resilience is built into its core. But survival comes at a cost. And what remains is no longer the same, because once a system cracks, it can never return to what it was before. The echo of the crack remains forever in the architecture. Wait for part 4. The system appears stable again. Operations resume, control returns. But this calm is not complete, because stability, after collapse, is never the same as before. It carries tension, hidden beneath control. The pulse of the machine remains uneven, and that tension can reshape everything. The quiet is an illusion. Behind the recovery, analysis begins. Every system, every connection, every layer is examined. Because survival is not enough. Understanding failure is what prevents the next one. And what they are finding is not comforting. The truth is deeper than the code. The discovery of the hidden fracture points has only just begun, a ghost in the archive. Something remains, small, almost invisible, but real. Because not every disruption fully disappears. Some remain hidden in the system. A technician hesitates before reporting what they see, the burden of discovery. Some remain hidden in the system, waiting for the right moment to grow again. The realization is unavoidable. The system survived, but not intact. Because every crisis leaves damage behind, invisible but structural. And over time, those fractures can become something far more dangerous. The foundation is no longer solid. It's a house of cards waiting for the wind. They understand and without speaking, because experience reveals patterns. This was not just failure, it was exposure, a glimpse into the system's limits. And limits must never be visible. Again, the silence is absolute. The secret of their vulnerability is the most dangerous weapon of all. So the system evolves, again, stronger, more complex, and harder to break. Because every weakness must be removed, every gap closed, and every future threat neutralized before it begins. The walls rise higher. The new wall is higher, thicker, and more invisible than the last, a monument to control. From the outside, nothing has changed. The world continues as expected. Because perception is controlled, and control depends on what is seen and what is hidden. The system remains invisible, even in recovery, perfect and hidden. The illusion of perfection is the ultimate safeguard of power. What you saw was only one layer. Beneath it, another system exists. And beneath that, another. Because true control is never singular. It is layered, redundant, and protected, far beyond what is visible. The depths of the control system are fathomless to the uninitiated. And even now, something deeper remains unseen, unreachable, and still active. Because this system was never built to fail completely. It was built to survive everything, even collapse itself. The pulse of control continues in the dark. Wait for part 4.
For many centuries, the families remained. For generations, some families never lost control. While other empires rise and fall, they remain. And even now, they still remain. Their vast wealth and influence, it is simply not stored. Their wealth is protected, layered, and hidden, deeply layered and hidden away. The rules, they decide everything. Who gets access to the inner circle? And for those who fail, they get nothing. Ownership itself begins to disappear, but the control always remains, invisible to the naked eye, completely and utterly untouchable in every way. Make no mistake, this is not money. This is a global power system, designed from the start to last forever, a legacy built to last forever. They do not guess, they track everything. Before power comes the discipline. Behind the scenes, the machine runs. The world reacts. However, they simply do not react. Their wealth is massive and global. It is found everywhere on the planet. This is far more than money. It is a generational timeline. The law serves as their shield. The law serves as their primary shield. Chaos hits every single person on Earth. Chaos hits everyone except for them and their families. Everything is watched by their systems. Everything is controlled with absolute precision. They move silently through the shadows. Everything in their world is controlled. Moving through the world without any limits. They move through the world without limits. Decisions are made in silence, within the silence of the elite. Decisions are made in absolute silence, within the silence of the elite council. Power, it is always close. The pressure within these meetings is immense. Power, it is always remarkably close, entering the most secured institutions on Earth, guarding the entrances to global influence, institutions that define our modern reality. What you see in the media right now, it certainly isn't everything that exists, switching between narratives in an instant. A single, perfectly controlled broadcast feed. The future, it is planned very early, projections that span decades of control, strategy discussed in the deepest shadows, focusing on the key geopolitical regions. This isn't just wealth, it is absolute control. A system designed to last for an eternity. And make no mistake, it never actually ends. The architecture of control is complete.